Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
So, Bridget and Alan, where are you? You're in Slovenia.
Currently in Ljubljana. So we arrived here on Saturday afternoon. We were going to spend some time around Cortina doing the Dolomites and stuff. It was just so insane. I think half of Europe is in the Dolomites at the moment. So I had 4 rides planned for the Dolomites. We did one and then we canned the rest and we came through to Slovenia, and it's a lot quieter.
Really? Just lots and lots of traffic?
Yeah.
Wow.
Apparently, someone told me that Italy has 1 week in August where everybody goes on holidays, like all the families. So, you know, the kids, Nonna, everybody goes on holidays in this particular week. I think they all came to Cortina.
And we were camping, so like just with the tent and the bike and stuff, we struggled to get a campsite in Cortina. We managed to get one.
Yeah.
I think it was the last site in the whole campground. It was just packed.
Yeah.
But yeah, the traffic, just insane.
Oh gosh. Clive might not know this, but we've ridden through Cortina.
I did know that because we actually made it into Slovenia, didn't we?
Briefly, yeah. But but I'm amazed to hear it's busy, because my experience of that is always that you get into the hills and it's quiet.
There was cars, there was trucks, there were RVs, cyclists, other motorcyclists. And then you get, you know, like someone driving along at 20 kilometres an hour and there's 2 people hanging out in the car taking happy snaps and a whole one traffic behind them on the twisties and on the hairpins and everything, and they're just totally oblivious to it. So
roads in Italy are usually quite entertaining, aren't they, when you're on a bike?
Yes.
I remember riding one time, I think we rode from Italy into Switzerland, and it's like you go over the border and the roads are suddenly immaculate again. Quite a contrast, because obviously we've spent quite a bit of time touring in Europe because it ain't far away for us.
We're a wee bit jealous.
I loved the enthusiasm and the excitement that you demonstrate. What's that road, Noel? We've ridden it as well, where you're almost riding through caves and you're right on the edge of the mountain and you can look down into the valley.
The balcony road.
The balcony road, yeah. And it's just like you're almost giggling like children as you're riding along it.
That was sheer terror, Clive.
I actually have a bit of a confession. I have a fear of heights, but I also have the exhilarating feeling you get when you do a road like that, where that one wasn't so bad in contrast to some of the ones we've done since.
Yeah.
But the thing we haven't showed on that video for the balcony road was when I put the route together, there's a little village up the top. And then when you get to that village, when I was looking on Google Maps and doing the, where you can zoom down and you can have a look at the road, it was in winter. So the road was closed after that. So I'd gone ahead a bit and I found some snapshots where it was showing a dirt track with meadows on either side. Didn't look too bad. After doing the balcony road, we got to this little village and there's a big sign. It's actually in 3 languages saying that it's like a provincial road and they can't guarantee that it's like, in any condition at all. So we get onto the gravel and we go up, and it was these nice little fields and everything. But then we come around a corner and basically the road was right on the mountain and there was just sheer drops on the right-hand side, which was even more terrifying than the balcony road. But we ended up doing the whole thing, come down the other side.
Yeah, I've done a similar sort of thing in Morocco, and I swear it wasn't even the width of a car, and it's like 200 feet cliff you're riding along, and once you get so far along it, you just think, well, I just have to carry on. And like you, I'm terrible with heights, so it seemed to last for about 10 miles, this terrifying cliff that I was riding along. But then after about 4 miles, you see like little kids cycling along on their bikes, not thinking twice about it, and you just think, maybe I need to man up a little bit.
I don't have this. I mean, if I'm on the ground, I don't really seem to have... I have a fear of heights, I would say, but only if I'm on scaffolding or up a tree.
I remember you on the balcony road, Noel, because there's quite a low wall in parts of it. Yes. I just remember you riding up and just putting your left foot down on it and looking over it, and I'm thinking, ah! Don't do that.
So how are you with bridges, Alan, when you're riding?
So Bridget sits on the back with a GoPro in one hand and a camera in the other hand, and she's just snapping away and doesn't seem to be impacted by it.
Yeah. I mean, Bridges, not Bridget. Well, we'll get on to how you are with Bridget later.
Definitely talk about that, yeah.
Bridges are fine. I've got,
Yeah.
I think it's all psychological, because if there is a wooden barrier that wouldn't even stop you from going through it if you were to hit it, I can ride closer to the edge.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just nothing, like doing Furka the other way, where it's just a sheer drop, then it's all in the head.
And it makes me laugh in a few of the roads that we did in France. You know, they've got like a little bit of string along the side of the road to stop you falling over the edge of the mountain. And I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
And then after a while, I figured out I don't think they care about you falling off the mountain at all. I think it's just to keep the cows off the road.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us who you are and what you're up to at the moment?
Thanks for having us. So my name's Bridget Hallam,
And I'm Alan Cox.
and together we are Throw Your Leg Over. We are Australian, as you can probably tell. So we're partners in life and in all our adventures. Yeah, love riding bikes.
Yeah, I guess our story is that 10 years ago, we've just celebrated our 10-year anniversary of meeting.
Mm.
I was in Brisbane, Bridget was in Brisbane, met, and then every weekend after that, we'd be out on the bike, exploring around southeast Queensland, northern New South Wales, the occasional trip away, long weekends and stuff. And then in 2016, we were on a camping trip or a weekend away with a friend who suggested that given we'd ridden so many places in southeast Queensland, northern New South Wales, probably knew it better than most people because of the amount of riding we were doing, we should write a book. By the end of the weekend, we had come up with a concept, the name, Throw Your Leg Over, and thought, don't die wondering, so let's give it a crack. Basically put together 21 of our favourite rides in southeast Queensland, northern New South Wales. We sort of describe the books as like a Lonely Planet for motorcyclists. They're not a bromance type book where someone's telling their tales and everything. You pick it up, you want to go for a ride, this is the ride you can choose. It gives you the directions, the map, the point-to-point directions. You've got QR codes that people can scan to bring it up into Google Maps, lots of pictures, lots of videos that they also scan with the QR code of the rides.
How had you chosen those routes?
They were
Was
just our favourite rides that we
Mm.
loved to ride, and we knew that they were great roads for riding. Some short, some long, some like 1 or 2 hours long, others like a good weekend away. Roads that we'd done and we loved, and we thought, you know what, let's just share these with other riders.
And trying to make it like a business out of it.
And has that worked out for you now? Because you've done more than just the one book, haven't you? You've done several now.
We have, so that was our first book. Had no clue if we'd even sell one book, but we did, and well, more than one book, and it went really well. And then, yeah, you're right. We did another book. We did Throw Your Leg Over Tasmania, because Tassie is just amazing for riding. And it's often on a place that's on people's bucket list to get down there and do a lap of Tassie on their bike.
Because even like MCN magazine in the UK has gone down and ridden Tassie and given it, some pretty rave views and everything. It really is a motorcycle mecca. The West Coast is like the Dolomites here in Italy, and the East Coast is lots of beautiful sweeping road. They say there's no straight road in Tasmania. They're not too far wrong with that. I think people sort of get a little bit confused with the size of Tasmania. Like, it's a reasonable size. Like we're here in Slovenia now, and it's 1/3 the size of Tasmania. So it's, a great place to ride.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And there's not many people there. So quite often you've got the road to yourself. It's amazing. So yes, so we did, that was book number 2.
So our first book took us 15 months to put together.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Tassie took us 11 months to put together. Then in 2019, we came over to Europe for 6 months. When we got back, we put a digital Europe publication together, over 1,000 pages.
So when Ellen says we came over to Europe for 6 months, that was actually just riding. Like it was going to be like our once in a lifetime adventure. we shipped our bike over and basically rode around for almost 6 months. It went from Portugal in the west to the Black Sea in the east, Morocco down south up to Norway, and sort of crisscrossing everywhere in between almost. It was pretty hectic. Like, we thought we would never be here again, so we were going hard. Like, we were just trying to ride as many roads as we could and see as many things as we could.
We started off, we shipped our bike to Barcelona, up to the top of France, for Anzac Day commemorations.
Well, I was going to say, were you making the route up as you went along, or did you have an idea of where you were going to go before you'd even left Australia?
So I'd put together some routes that were must-dos that we had to do. Other times we just winged it, and I'd look, for squiggly lines and stuff on a map, and go, okay, that looks okay, so let's go do that. But yeah, we did 27,000 kilometres in 24 weeks across 26 countries.
Wow.
So like Bridget said, we started off in France, or Barcelona, then to France, came down west coast of France into Spain, then Portugal, then Morocco. And then when we left Morocco, we came back into Spain, sort of followed the east coast up and worked our way around Italy, and then around to here in Slovenia, and then did the Balkan countries, most of them, across to the Black Sea, and then finished in Norway before we had to get the bike back to the UK to ship her home.
Your number plate must have got a lot of attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
A very big talking point is the number plate, because you get people, because it's a Queensland number plate.
Yeah.
So they would come up and they go, "Where are you from?"
Yeah.
And you go, "Australia." And a lot of the reaction would be, "Australia, you're local." So, because I think people must have thought we'd ridden from Australia,
of course.
up, and we didn't sort of discourage the tail.
A nice little story. We were just parked up the top of Italy, sort of Trieste, coming down towards Croatia. This old guy wandered over. He had a walking stick and his legs were kind of bandaged up, and he's looking at the number plate and, "Where are you from?" We said, "Australia." And he's like, "Oh," he's having a chat, and he goes, "Oh, my cousin lives in Mackay." And Mackay, for those of you who are not familiar with our geography, is just a couple of hours north of Brisbane, where we were living at the time.
Hours on a plane.
It was just really sweet, and yeah, definitely an icebreaker. People are just very curious and wander over. I mean, people are normally, we find, do anywhere. We sort of park, people will wander over and sort of have a chat. But yeah, it was very much an icebreaker.
But the other thing they'll look at is they'll look at the plate and they'll go, "Where is old?" Because being Queensland, the Q, really you can't see the little squiggly bit. So it looks like it's old. And
yeah. But it's nice, when people wander over and have a chat.
When you did the 6 month through Europe, were you actually documenting and thinking of writing the book, or did you just decide to do that after you'd done it?
Confession time. Yes, because we have the business, throw your leg over, this was all business research, so we could write it off on tax. so we're documenting everything,
Which made our tax for that year was awesome, because I do contract consulting work, so have my own business, which we're trying to get away from and get throw your leg over to be more of our main focus. But yeah, the tax implications was awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
You're still self-published?
Yes.
We do everything with the books. Obviously, we research them. Every single ride we put in a book we have done. So we test them all, make sure that they're awesome, take lots of photos and videos as we're riding. I do all the book design. Most of the photos were ours. We did everything except the actual printing. We went to a printer to do the printing.
The first printer we went to for our first book was just awesome and helpful and everything, been in the game for 5 generations and stuff. Yes. So,
I mean, that's quite a leap of faith, isn't it, to produce the first book? Yes. How many copies did you print in your first run?
First run, we did 1,500 copies, because it's all on economy of scale. The less you do, the more it costs. Printing in Australia is very expensive. We did the 1,500 copies not knowing whether we'd sell one. We sold out of those just before we came to Europe. So we did another print run of another 1,000. Tasmania, we did 2,500. Europe is a digital publication. It's just too big to put into paper print.
Yeah, it's over 1,000 pages.
And then our edition 2 of SEQ, we totally revamped that, added more rides to it last October. And we've done 1,500.
We did 1,500 copies
of those.
That's a lot of books, isn't it? I mean, that's quite brave as well. 1,500 seems like a big number for.
Yeah, it was a bit scary.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to give things a crack, haven't you? And,
Well, I was thinking of getting some T-shirts done for the podcast, and I'm thinking 40?
10.
Maybe 10 hats. See how they go. Then again, maybe not. What's in the guidebooks? And obviously there's a route, and you've got links to some online resources. Do you put in campsites and accommodation?
So in our first book for Southeast Queensland and also the Tasmania book, we did put in accommodation.
I had quite extensive accommodation directories in the first 2 books. There was about 800 places to stay, and in the Tassie book there was about 1,000. But we ran into the inevitable problem of keeping those up to date. Like with the second edition, we had to sit down and think, do we want to go through, especially with COVID and everything that happened with that. So we ended up leaving that out in the second edition. And instead we put a new section in the beginning before all the rides, which was just sort of useful information, more so for riders that are not as experienced with riding and adventuring and camping and that kind of thing.
And that's the same with the Europe book. The Europe publication, the first 100-odd pages is all about prepping for your tour, particularly, you know, like, do you ship your bike? Do you buy a bike? Do you hire a bike?
Insurance.
Yeah.
How much money do you really need?
Schengen.
So,
Well, can you explain what is the Schengen calculator? The Schengen calculator.
It's the bane of our life. That's what Schengen is.
Yeah. So Schengen.
Yeah.
So you guys actually come under Schengen rules now as well, which is you can only spend 90 days in every 180 days in the Schengen bloc countries.
I've never heard this before. This is incredible.
Have you not listened to the news recently? No, you know we've left the EU, right? We live in the Lake District in the UK. I don't know if you've been here, but it's like Brigadoon. It's like this lost world, and I'm not even sure Noel can get television where he lives.
Brexit?
So
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Nutshell, the Schengen area is basically where you're riding around Europe and you don't have to worry about borders. You just ride from country to country to country and you barely even know that you've crossed a border. That's the Schengen area.
26 countries, I think it is, that belong to Schengen.
But the thing is that you're only allowed to be there for a little while before you've got to get out. So you can be there for 90 days within 180 days. So you can go in, out, which is what we did in 2019, but you just got to be careful that you don't overstay your welcome.
And like we only found out about it by accident because we were doing our book launch, I think, for our SEQ book maybe. And a couple blokes wandered by and we were telling them our plans of heading to Europe in 2019 and everything. And they said Schengen. And we're going, what's Schengen?
What?
And then we had to research it. What is it? How does it impact you? And then I'm pretty much a whiz with Excel and all that sort of thing. So I've put together like a Schengen calculator. That's a free download from our website that anyone can come on, download it, and it's all done for them. All they do is put in the country then, their start date, their finish date, next country. It'll tell you whether it's Schengen or not, and it'll do your cumulative count for you to say, okay, you're now getting close to your 90 days, so you need to start, you know. I haven't actually heard of, I've heard of one person who overstayed their time limit by quite a significant time. And from what I read into it, that person was not allowed back in Europe, Schengen area again. But I don't know what the implications are. Like we were 2 days over in our 2019 trip. We did 92 days Schengen, 68 out of Schengen. Yeah. When we got to the border at the hook, or to the port, Hook of Holland, to ship the bike across, the guy there asked us how long we've been touring. We said, nearly 6 months. And then he started going through our passport. But, when you're in the Balkans and you're going into Bosnia and places, Serbia and all that sort of stuff, some of them don't stamp your passport. Some will just swipe them through a little machine. And then others will just choose whatever page and stamp your passport. So I don't think he could work out without spending a month like going through our passport. He did start checking. So I don't know what the implications are. I have heard they can be quite severe.
But for most of us mere mortals, it's not an issue, is it? The 90-day thing.
Well, yes. I only get 25 days a year holiday, so I'm not too worried.
Yeah.
So have you got something of a community that has developed around your books and your website?
We do. We've got the most amazing community. It's great. We've got quite a few followers on Facebook, and just the vibe and the I don't know, the tone of the comments and on Facebook and Instagram are so nice, and we get emails from people, just really, really nice. I think we very rarely get someone that's critical, which is really nice, actually. I feel like it's sort of a bit of a highly unusual for the social media world for people to be quite positive. So that's really cool. That's nice.
We got 7,000 plus followers on Facebook, not so many on our Instagram and YouTube. I mean, we've got a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, but we haven't really pushed it, promoted it. And we're getting better at our filming and putting it together and stuff. Like, the start of it was pretty rough and raw. So you just put a video together, chuck it up, and hopefully you get 1 million subscribers, but it doesn't happen like that. So,
have you been to the ABR before, the festival?
This year was the first time.
Yes, we didn't know you were there. We didn't see you.
Oh, what a shame.
We were hiding in the TRF tent. We did actually recorded a live podcast in there. But I guess my point is, it's a lovely, friendly atmosphere, isn't it?
Yes.
It was fantastic. We loved it. Yeah.
And for us, like, we've never been to an event of that size before, like the 10,000 people that were there. We communicated with ABR prior to coming over, saying like if there was an opportunity for us to give a talk or whatever, we'd welcome it. They came back to us saying that their speaker program was full, but they were quite happy for us they set up a table for us as an author's table. We sat around there for a few hours on the Friday and Saturday, and people were wandering by, and we just bought some demo copies of our books that we had out. So we had the 3 days at the festival, which was just so awesome. It
was brilliant. From an event point of view, I thought it was really well organised, but obviously there were some glitches, there always are. But overall, I thought they did a brilliant job. And I just, like you say, I just loved the vibe of it. It was just friendly, easygoing. Everyone was having a good time. It was really good.
Did you have to make a big detour to attend that?
No, because we shipped the bike to London from Melbourne. And then we flew into London. We had 3 days in London, and then picked up the bike and toddled off up to the festival.
And we're super excited that next year, 2023, we will actually be speaking there.
Oh,
so are you guys going? It'd be great to actually meet you.
Probably.
Yeah, we almost certainly are. As I said in that email I sent you, we're not quite sure in what guise yet, but we'll be there in one form or another, I think.
Awesome. All right, we'll definitely have to catch up.
I think one of the things we did notice with the festival, though, is like with our following and our engagement and everything we get through Throw Your Leg Over, through Facebook, through our website, book sales, everything else, we have a ratio of about 70-30, so 70% male, 30% female. In Australia, the female representation in bike riding is growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's really
good. It would be nice, to see at the festival more women riders at the festival. I think
I'm surprised. I'm surprised at that ratio, 70-30. I would never have guessed at that.
We get a breakdown of stats for the podcast, and our listenership for women is at about 4%. Tiny. We must be doing something wrong.
Oh, I don't know. In Australia, there just seems to be a real momentum growing at the moment with women riders, even young women like 18, 20-year-olds are interested in getting their motorcycle license, there seems to be a real kind of shift happening. So, and it's really interesting, and I love it. As a female, I love that. I always get a smile on my face when I see a woman rider. I'm like, yes, go girl. I love being pillion. I love taking the photos and the videos, but I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I really want to learn how to ride. I still want a pillion, but I just want to know how to ride. So I did. I went and I did the training. So it was a couple of days training, and then you have to come back a few months later and do another day, and then they just make sure that, yes, you're going along okay. So that's where I'm at the moment. But I do have to go back again to get my full license. So I'm still kind of, I don't know. In Australia, we're on our P's when we've progressed beyond our first learner stage, but we're not quite in our full license. So
and you're restricted to in most states, a 650 or less LAMS approved bike.
So in a nutshell, I can't ride Beauty, our bike that we have here in Europe at the moment, because she's a 1200. So legally I'm not allowed to ride her yet.
But do you think once you've got your license, do you think you'll still be riding pillion, or do you think that once you've got the license, you'll never go back to pillion?
I think I'll do both. I do love the pillion side of things because I just sort of get to relax and enjoy the scenery and take the photos and the videos. But I do like to ride as well, so myself. So I think it'll be a mix.
Have you ever fallen asleep as a pillion?
Many, many, many times.
It's funny, isn't
Guilty.
it? Yeah, it's quite. I always thought that was quite a compliment. When my girlfriend, for the short time that she rode pillion, if ever she said she'd fallen asleep, I thought that was a compliment.
Yeah. Well, the last time that I fell asleep was
today,
this afternoon.
when we're actually on the motorway from Kranjska Gora back to Ljubljana. Just.
I don't know. I can't help it. In the afternoons when we've been riding.
Yeah. Had lunch. Yeah. Nice long lunch. Yeah.
Got full belly. I'm feeling nice and, relaxed. Yeah.
So you must really trust Alan as a rider then.
Oh, definitely. And I think as a pillion, you have to absolutely trust your rider.
One of the stories I've got actually is when we did our first Tassie trip, we rode from Brisbane down to Tassie, did a lap of Tassie, then come back around through South Australia and across the very boring hay plains in New South Wales. And, I've got a range of about normally 360, 370 kilometres on the GS, but we had a horrific wind that was just knocking us around. And we're 38 kilometres out of hay, which I thought I had enough fuel to get to. Bridget's actually asleep on the back. The bike's literally sideways. The fuel light comes on, and then I'm looking and I'm counting down 37 kilometres to hay, 36. Where will we run out of fuel? And I've got to wake Bridget up and say, we've got to push. Luckily, we made it all the way into hay, filled it up, and it had 1 litre left in the tank. Yeah, that was, and it was only 265 kilometres or 280 kilometres, but the wind impact just put the fuel consumption out of this well.
You must get on very well, though, because when you're travelling, you're spending 24 hours a day together.
What's the most annoying thing about Alan?
It was because before we went to Europe in 2019, we didn't actually live together. We went from not living together to being together 24/7, almost literally joined at the hip. We were like hip to hip. I took a little while to adjust to that. Yeah. I had a couple of meltdowns, I'm going to be honest, where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going with this.
But in some ways, it can be easier on the road than it can be in a domestic setting at home, I think, can't it?
Oh, I think so, definitely, because the adventure is, we're how can I say this? When we're having an adventure, it's way better than being at home with mundane life.
But I think having said that as well, in 2020, we made a decision that we were going to sell everything, buy a caravan, ute, bike on the back, hook it up and just go working and also travelling. And so in 2020, we were prepping 3 houses for sale. We ended up selling two. So Bridget sold her house and her little investment property she had. I kept the house that I had, which is rented out in Brisbane. And we bought a caravan, ute or whatever you want to call it. In the UK, we call them utes, with a tray on it. And I have another bike, I've got a 1200 GSA, which went on the back of that. And we just travelled and worked, and we're living, so we left November 20, came back March 21 to Brisbane because of all places, I got a bloody contract back in Brisbane. So we had to come back up to Brisbane. And then in January this year, I had a contract out of Sydney. So we packed up and moved down to Newcastle, or just south of Newcastle, on a beautiful Lake Macquarie. But we were there for 11 weeks and it rained for 9.5 weeks. So I was stuck in a caravan because we're both working remote inside the caravan.
So you're calling it, is it like a demountable that sits on the back of a pickup? Like a demountable caravan that sits on the pickup? No, this
is a caravan we tow.
It is actually a caravan, right?
Yeah. So 21 foot, it's got a shower, toilet, it's quite a great lifestyle.
It's quite nice, and we enjoy it a lot. But those 9 weeks of rain, that did our heads in. We couldn't even really go outside the caravan and sit outside because it was just wet and rainy. And we had the poor dog. Oh my God. And we're having to take her out to go to the toilet 5 times a day in the rain with the umbrella.
Yeah, it was when the whole east coast of Australia was just inundated and flooded.
Terrible floods.
Not just once, but 2 and 3 times.
Yeah.
Well, I thought when you started to tell us about this that the plan was to sort of set off across that huge continent and do the classic tour of Australia with the caravan and the bike. Not
so much a tour of Australia. I don't think we sort of wanted to do a lap or anything that specific. It was more just let's hit the road and go exploring.
Well, I guess there was 2 things. So apart from our books, we've also started a monthly membership where people join our membership, and each month, so they got access to all the rides from our published books. Each month we do a new ride in Australia, a new ride in Europe.
Video blogs
on whether it be equipment or camping gear or repairing a tyre. And then we also do like a live Q&A session each month with our members. So part of having the caravan and the ute and the bike was we were going to go to new places that we haven't been before, and we would ride new roads, and then that would form, the monthly membership as we go. So we did that.
We could share those with the members.
We did that, and we've got all these new rides in Australia that take us through basically to December. And then we have to actually do some new rides when we get home so we can keep the membership going and stuff. So that was sort of the thinking of, we can go to a new place. We can both still work. Bridget was working part-time. I was working pretty much full-time, but from the caravan. But, if you wanted to take a day out, then you take a day out and you get on the bike and you go do a new ride.
Yeah.
Do you still have a lot of Australia still to discover?
On the bike, yes. For me personally, I've worked and lived in just about every state in Australia. I've been many times to every state through a lot of travel, work and stuff, but more so in either flying or four-wheel driving, and so we've not gone to Western Australia on the bike. I've spent quite a bit of time over in that part of the world.
I would love to explore more of Australia on the bike. I'd love to go to New Zealand. I've never been to New Zealand, another confession.
I have.
Oh, yes, and it is completely on my bucket list, and I am determined that I will get there and that we will ride around New Zealand. I just think that would be amazing. But yeah, Australia, I think there's so many more roads that I would love to do on the bike.
Just in Victoria itself, we've done 4 or 5 rides that we've got for our membership in Victoria, coming up and stuff, but there's still dozens and dozens and dozens to do.
So many. It's just, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a bit like Europe as well, I think, you can ride and ride and ride, but there's still so many roads that you can explore.
Well, I was going to say in Australia, because it is such a huge continent. I mean, what's the longest sort of one ride that you've got in the guides? Have you done one that?
About 800 kilometres.
So
Yeah.
there isn't one that sort of, like say, does the huge loop of Australia, like a
No.
coastal
No.
route of it. Nothing that huge, no.
No,
'Cause I just only
because-
asked that because I went to Australia once, and because I live on quite a small island, it was just mind-boggling to suddenly be on this huge landmass. Couldn't quite get my head around it.
And the structure of the books is like with Southeast Queensland, Northern New South Wales, we break that up in what we call quick blats, day rides, and weekends away. So, like Bridget was saying before, quick blat might be 2 or 3 hours. Day ride is, out for the day, and a weekend away might either be a weekend or a long weekend. With Tasmania, that is designed for people that are going down to Tassie, spending, 10 days, 2 weeks, and it does a lap of the island, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. We've got 16 rides. People can choose whether they can only do 10 or but they all sort of interlink together and then go around the island.
Do you find that writing the guides means that it encourages you to get out more, you get more biking done, or does it sometimes feel like a chore when you're out for a ride thinking, I've got to document all of this and then write something up afterwards?
I think that it encourages us to get out there. Although when we were doing the edition 2 of our Southeast Queensland, Northern New South Wales book, we had a little bit of a deadline. So that was a little bit of pressure there to actually get out and do those last couple of rides so that we could get them in the book. But overall, I think it's just a great excuse to get on the bike and go for a ride, really.
Wherein, if we, Noel or I, or both of us together, heaven forbid, were to fly into Australia and hire some bikes, where should we head to?
Well, you should head to Brisbane and then you should buy our book. Honestly, anywhere along the East Coast generally will be quite amazing because we've got the Great Dividing Range that pretty much goes from the top of Australia down to the bottom along the East Coast.
Which a lot of people don't realise or don't know, but the Great Dividing Range is the 5th longest mountain range in the world.
Yeah.
And it goes from the top of Australia on the East Coast down pretty much to the bottom.
So there's lots of
twisty roads and stuff. We just don't have the height of the mountains that, are here in Europe, like the Great Alpine Road in Victoria, like the road itself reaches, I think, 1,640 metres or something like that, which is still reasonable. I mean, we've got twisty roads through the mountains.
Oh, you're back now.
I don't know what happened there.
Back in the room. It's just a weird internet thing.
Well,
So
we lost you
it's
just after that amazing fact about the longest mountain range.
Yeah, so we've got the longest mountain range. So really anywhere along the East Coast, you'll find twisties and amazing scenery. But if you want somewhere specific and you're on limited time, Tassie, 100%. The roads are amazing. It's small, but it's kind of remote. Like the biggest town on the West Coast, Strawn, has 200 people. That gives you a little indication of how sparsely populated it is. We did one road. We went for 127 kilometres and we saw one car.
It's got to be in some poll, hasn't it, as one of the most desirable places on earth to live.
Yeah, the scenery is just beautiful.
On the other side of that, if somebody were flying from Australia to Europe and they only had, say, a week, nobody would ever come from all that way for a week, but where would you recommend they go in Europe?
I guess depending on the time of year, as we found out this time, because last time in 2019 in July and August, we were in Eastern Europe, so we missed all the busyness of Western Europe. Definitely the Alps, the Switzerland, France, Italy, Austria, in that Alps area.
I think the Alps are the glamorous, sexy destination.
I think that's the right answer, by the way.
But we love Eastern Europe as well. Like it's just so much more low key, but equally stunning for riding.
And if you're on a budget.
And it's cheaper.
Because we are on a budget, we set ourselves a target of $200 a day Australian, so about 130 euros at the moment with the exchange rate, which is really good. If you're on a budget, like you're pretty much going to blow that in Western Europe. But depending on what you do, whether you're happy to do camping or Airbnbs or a mix, which we do.
How achievable is that budget?
I'm very OCD with running numbers and everything else.
We had Ed on last week. He had his budgeting spreadsheet from a trip he did in 2007 or something like that.
I run a spreadsheet that I update update every day with our spend, and it's broken up into accommodation, fuel, tolls, food, all that sort of thing. One, because for us, we are a business, so it is a business expense, except for food. We've only just got what we call into Eastern Europe now and Slovenia, and then we're going into Croatia and then Bulgaria, Romania and stuff again. We set ourselves $200 a day, and we are tracking right on that $200, even though we've been Switzerland, Italy. Italy was insane, even with camping, like 40 euros a night in the Cortina area.
To pitch our tent.
To pitch a tent.
That's crazy.
No electricity.
Switzerland was actually a surprise because we stayed in a place, in a campground in Brig, which was only like 16 euros a night.
Yeah, because Switzerland's where you'd expect it to be expensive, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're also mixing up, a little bit with staying with friends that we've made through touring and everything. 66 nights now, and we've camped for 40 of those. And then, we're here in Ljubljana on a nice Airbnb because we just needed a hard roof over our head for a while.
Do you ever sneak down a track and just camp in the middle of nowhere next to a river?
No, I need a shower.
Right.
And we got all this tech that we got to charge up, and I need a glass of wine. Cold.
We've got a laptop each, 2 GoPros, a camera.
Yeah, phones.
So by the time you get into a place and then you pull off all your pictures, Bridget will take like 1,500 pics on one ride.
Yeah, there's a lot of admin on this trip.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is. It's
And you would know, like behind the scenes, there's a lot of work that goes into producing what you do, like your podcasts, and same for us. Like there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. It all looks easy.
Can I just say, Noel has no idea about all the work that goes on in the podcast.
Noel, lift your game.
You just press play and record. I don't know what the big deal is.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Coming back to the budget, I think for us, 200 Australian dollars or 130 euros a day is so far so good. We're sticking to the budget.
That's including we've put a new set of tyres on the bike. I've done a service on the bike, ferries. The bloody Eurotunnel was 130 euros or something. And so it's not just like your food and everyday thing. This is also...
It's all factored into that then, is it? Into that 130, right?
Yeah. So we have one bike, so that's only fuel for one bike, tyres for one bike, servicing for one bike, etc. Ferries for one bike. So that helps keep it down a little bit as well.
What are you getting to the gallon? That's what I want to know.
Oh, God, don't answer that. Don't encourage him. Don't catch his eye. He'll ask you about it again. Don't look at him.
It's like a brick because it's got the boxes on the side and the bloody big thing across the back. Yeah. Well, we average about 5 litres per 100 kilometres.
Yeah. 5 litres. Well, I'll have to work that out later. 5 litres. Well, that's about a gallon, isn't it? 5 litres per what?
Yeah, just over a gallon for 100 miles.
Oh, that's not bad, is it? For everything?
You work
it's really good. She's a 1200GS, and we are carrying a bit of weight.
Yeah.
She's an older girl though. She's 2008, so she's not a brand spanking new bike. Yeah, she does well.
Do you think you will do any more guides? Are you thinking of venturing Asia or Africa or the Americas next?
I'd like to do South America and start at the bottom and go to the top.
I don't know. We love Europe. Got to be honest. We love Europe.
So when we come back next year, because we're leaving our bike in Portugal with friends at the end of this year, going home for a few weeks, and then intend to come back next year and pretty much spend all of next year. And we were intending to go further east into the stands, Russia, but then someone decided they want to have a war and just stuff everything up.
You'll have to come to the Lake District instead.
Yeah, and we want to go up to Scotland because we haven't done Scotland yet.
Scotland is utterly amazing.
We did Norway in 2019, but only far around as Kristiansund, and then we had to get back because the bike had to be shipped home. So we do want to do Nordkap for the sake of saying we've done Nordkap.
No, the Arctic Circle. Don't do it.
That
would be my advice.
Nervous, I've got to be honest about that. I'm not great in the cold, so
be fine in July.
I'm a tiny bit nervous about Nordkap.
Listen to a podcast we did with a guy called Thomas Hansen, who's a big YouTuber based in Norway, and he says, there's no need to go to Nordkap. It's just boring, straight roads in the freezing cold.
The best of Norway is below the Arctic Circle, I would say.
Oh, definitely. When we did the West Coast, I mean, that was the end of our tour in 2019, and so we did, Lisbotn, we did Garanger, Trollstigen, the Atlantic coast and everything. After 3 days, you got no more superlatives to say. It's It's just the fact of that you've done it.
But the interesting thing I found about Norway was, even though it's sort of theoretically part of Europe or in the vicinity of Europe, it felt very different from Europe, because for us coming from Australia, where there's so much space and so few people, Europe feels very condensed and a bit intense because there's people everywhere. There's so many people. And when we got to Norway, it was kind of the opposite of that. The further north we went, I actually felt like it was starting to feel a bit remote. And it started to remind me of Australia, but really cold. And so I think when we go further north up to Nordkapp, I'm kind of expecting it to remind me a little bit of Australia, of just the long roads with hardly anybody there. Obviously, it's going to look different and feel different, but just that sense of remoteness.
Well, to answer your question, we did want to go east, sort of toyed with the idea of maybe going down through Asia back to Australia. Don't know whether that's possible with some of the issues that are happening in the world.
Do you enjoy being endlessly on the road, or do you miss home often?
There's times where you miss home, you miss the dog, your family, even though in this modern era you can just jump on Messenger and do video calls with, because I've got 2 daughters, Bridget's got a daughter and a son and stuff, and, folks and all that sort of thing. Sometimes, there's pangs of missing home, and I don't think we have what would be called a normal life at home anyway, because how we live now.
But I did have a moment the other week where I was like, I just need a dog to cuddle. I need to find somebody's dog to cuddle because I miss my dog.
Yeah. My girlfriend's like that, and we don't even have a dog. She's like that with she's like that with sheep. She'll look at sheep in a field and she'll say, all I want is to cuddle a sheep. Yeah. Who's looking after the dog?
Alan's daughter is looking after the dog.
My daughter and her partner has our caravan, our ute, the other bike, and the dog.
Yeah.
On the flip side, like we do, like being on the bike is our happy place. That's where we feel most at home, I think.
Until it's 40 degrees and you get off it at the end of the day and you're just a melted wreck.
Yeah.
What's the longest you'll stop in one place?
Ooh, good question.
So this trip is a little bit different to 2019. 2019, we went hard, and I think the longest we had in a place may have been 3 or 4 nights. Most places were 1 or 2. This time, we've actually spent we've got a week here in Ljubljana. We had a week out of 5 nights with a friend in Switzerland on a lake, went out on his yacht. It was pretty bloody hard.
It was so hard.
But do you feel when you stop that you've kind of got itchy feet and you want to start making forward progress again when you do stop?
After 2 or 3 days, yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I reckon it's both. I reckon here when we've arrived in Ljubljana and we were both sick of the tent and sick of, I think, the logistics of where are we going to get breakfast? How are we going to charge things? Just everything is a bit harder when you're just in the tent. And so when we arrived here in Ljubljana and we got this lovely Airbnb place, and I think the first couple of days were just like, this is so good.
but today was good to get on the bike, and we did a lap, out to Mangart and Verchik Pass. And
it doesn't take long for the feet to get itchy.
Tell us a little bit more about your website, how we can get hold of your books and how we sign up to your community and your membership stuff.
Yeah, so if you just jump on to throwyourlegover.com.au, everything's there. All our books are available there. The paperbacks and the digital versions are available for sale online, and also our membership. So our membership's really cool because we get to send new rides and new video blogs out to our members every month. A bit different from the books where it takes us about a year to put a book together. The membership is great because we get to know our members, which is really nice. Like a lot of times with the books, we don't really know who's buying books or sort of how they're going with the books. But the membership's just more personal and quite fun. So, yeah, you can join up the membership there as well. You can join up monthly. It's monthly or annually. And then you get a bunch of goodies from us every month.
Are you just about to ask a
No,
question?
I was just going to say, you must be so
Every
pleased
time.
with the way it's turned out. You know, that you had this
That
idea.
was the question.
You had this idea, and it's just taken off like this. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Sometimes we pinch ourselves. We actually we're just coming up on 5 years ago when we launched our first book at a at a motorcycle show in country Queensland on the Sunshine Coast. We went along with that. We'd only picked them up like 3 days before the show. We had got we're at 100 Facebook likes or something. And it was like, we were so excited.
Yeah.
And then I had a goal that if we sold 100 books at the show and in that first week, I would be over the moon. We sold 100 before we got to the show. And by the time we came back from the show, we'd sold over 200.
Great.
And we were it was just pinching ourselves and going, oh my God, someone's actually bought something that we have done.
Yeah, it's worked.
But it's been such a great ride, no pun intended, because we've just met so many people through doing Throw Your Leg Over, which is always a joy. We always love that. So if you see us, come up and have a chat. We love chat.
Yeah. And we've got friends that are now lifelong friends that if we hadn't done Throw Your Leg Over, I don't think that would have happened because these people have connected with us. Both in Australia and here in Europe. It's very humbling.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's been a lot of work, but it's been fun. It's just been really fun.
That's a really good point to end on. And now you've got two more new friends as well in the north of England. So when you pass by, you've got somewhere to stay here too.
Definitely looking forward to meeting you and face to face. And
would love to meet you.
My only other question that doesn't need to go in was that you kind of hinted that you came across this name very quickly.
Yes.
Were there any other names in the running for it? Really?
It just came out. It was
great.
So Throw Your Leg Over.
We wanted something a little bit cheeky.
Like throw on the leg.
But motorcycle related. So.
I just kept thinking of throw your leg over the map at Tassie, mate. We should definitely end now. So a massive thanks to Bridget and Alan. That was a lot of fun recording that. I just wanted to add one more thing before you go on a slightly more serious note. We came across an organisation at the Lightweight Adventurous Festival called Mental Health Motorbike, and we thought it'd be a good thing to mention on the podcast. So Mental Health Motorbike is a free mental health first aid support charity for the motorbike community throughout the UK. It's a free face-to-face and online mental health support charity for the biker community throughout the UK. They exist to create meaningful and purposeful opportunities for all bikers so that together we can grow the well-being of the biker community. They do it through one-to-one and peer support, events, training activities and projects, working in partnership with the industry, organisations and clubs. When life gets tough, they are here to support, to listen and to ride. To get some support, visit www.mhmotorbike.com. That's www.mhmotorbike.com. Sorry, there was one more thing. Just to let you know, we're now on Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. So if you'd like to support the podcast, you can make a regular small donation through www.patreon.com/TAMP podcast or Buy Me a Coffee. There doesn't seem to be a sensible URL for Buy Me a Coffee, but if you just search on that or look on our Facebook page, there's a link there. And through Buy Me a Coffee, you can just make a single donation to help support the podcast. Massive thank you to everybody that's done it so far. That's insanely appreciated. Thank you very much. See you next time, guys and girls. Cheers. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.